My name is Stephen Collins. I am 36 years old and live in a high-end townhouse in the historic Back Bay area of Boston, Massachusetts. From my living room window, I can see the cobblestone streets glistening under the streetlights each evening, like a vivid painting where the past blends seamlessly with the present. To an outsider, my life now might seem like a dream. A tech education company worth hundreds of millions of dollars, a cozy home, and a smart, lively 10-year-old son. But behind this glamorous facade lies a long journey filled with tears, pain, and scars that will never fully heal. I want to share my story with you, not to boast, but to show you that sometimes light only comes after the darkest days. I grew up in a middle-class family in the suburbs of Boston, but I wasn't their biological child. I was adopted, taken in by Deborah and Peter Collins from an orphanage when I was 3 years old. My adoptive mother, Deborah, was the kindest woman I've ever known. She had warm brown eyes that always looked at me as if I were her entire world. When I was little, she would sit by my bedside every night, telling me fairy tales, stroking my hair and whispering that I was her most precious gift. But my adoptive father, Peter, was a different story altogether. He was a harsh, cold man who always kept his distance from me. I still remember his piercing gaze, sharp as a blade, whenever I accidentally spilled a glass of water or forgot to do my homework. "You're not my son," he once spat at me when I was 15 during a heated argument. Those words cut like a knife, etching themselves into my mind, a constant reminder that I would always be an outsider in this home. Then there was Ryan, my adoptive younger brother, 5 years my junior. Ryan was Peter and Deborah's biological son, and he knew it. He grew up with the arrogance of someone unconditionally loved, always finding ways to mock me, from ridiculing the worn-out shoes I wore to school to deliberately humiliating me in front of friends. "You're just the spare they picked up," he once sneered, his smile dripping with malice. I tried not to let it get to me, but each of his words was like a stone hurled at my heart, chipping away at it bit by bit. Only my mother stood up for me, wiping away my tears when I hid in my room. She would tell me that I deserved to be loved no matter where I came from. Our family wasn't wealthy. My father worked as a bank employee, my mother was an elementary school teacher, and every expense was carefully calculated to make ends meet. When I graduated high school, my dream of attending college crumbled because the family couldn't afford it. Ryan, of course, was prioritized. "He's the future of this family," my father said, as if I were nothing. I didn't blame my mother, knowing she had tried to convince my father, but he never listened. So I started working, first as a waiter in a small diner, then as a warehouse worker. But I didn't want to stop there. A fierce ambition burned within me, to prove that I wasn't the worthless person my father and Ryan thought I was. At 20, I began my entrepreneurial journey. My idea was a tech education platform to provide free, high-quality lessons to children in underserved areas. I worked day and night, sleeping on a sofa in a cramped rented apartment, eating instant noodles to save money. But starting a business wasn't a fairy tale. My first 2 ventures failed miserably. I lost all my capital, sank into debt, and there were nights when I sat alone wondering if I was deluding myself. My father and Ryan didn't miss a chance to mock me. "You think you can do something big, you little orphan?" Ryan sneered during a family dinner. My father just looked at me, shaking his head as if I were a living disappointment. But my mother was always there. She secretly sent me her savings, money I knew she had scraped together from her modest salary. "You'll make it, Stephen," she said, gripping my hand tightly. "I believe in you." Her encouragement was the flame that kept me going. Then at 25, I met Monica, the woman I thought would be the love of my life. She was radiant, with a smile that could light up a room. We fell in love quickly and married after just a year of dating. When my son Logan was born, I felt my life finally had meaning. I vowed to give Logan the family I never had, one filled with love and security. But life is never that simple. When Logan was 3, my third startup failed. I was drowning in debt, the weight of financial pressure crushing me. Monica began to change. She grew distant, irritable, and then one day she left. No explanation, just a note on the kitchen table. "I can't do this anymore, I'm sorry." She didn't just abandon me, she abandoned Logan, the son she once called her entire world. I held Logan in my arms, my 3-year-old boy, innocently asking, "Where's Mommy, Daddy?" My heart shattered, not just from Monica's betrayal, but because I knew I couldn't answer his question without hurting him. From then on, it was just me and Logan leaning on each other. The days after Monica left were a blur of sleepless nights and anxious days. I still remember the tiny apartment we rented in the Boston suburbs, with its stained, damp walls and the constant blare of car horns from the street below. Logan, only 3 years old at the time, would curl up in his blanket, his big round eyes looking at me as he asked, "Mommy's coming back, right, Daddy?" Each time I could only hold him close, whispering gentle lies to hide the pain in my heart. I didn't know how to explain to a child that the mother he loved had chosen to abandon him. All I knew was that I had to be strong, not for myself, but for Logan, my little boy. In the darkest of those days, my adoptive mother, Deborah, was the one who kept me from sliding into despair. She would secretly visit us, bringing homemade meals, stews, toasted bread, or a jar of strawberry jam that Logan loved. "You need to eat properly, Stephen," she'd say, her voice filled with worry, her trembling hands placing the food containers on the table. Once, she slipped an envelope with a few $100s into my hand. I protested, shame welling up inside me, but she held my hand firmly, her eyes resolute. "You're my son. I can't stand by and watch you and Logan suffer." I hugged her, tears falling silently. Her kindness was the only thing reminding me that I wasn't entirely alone. But my adoptive father, Peter, and my adoptive brother, Ryan, were a different story. They never asked about or showed concern for me and Logan. Once I brought Logan back to the old family home, hoping to find a sliver of familial warmth. But Peter just looked at me with his cold eyes and said, "You brought this misery on yourself. Don't expect me to help." Ryan was worse. He smirked, eyeing Logan in his worn clothes, and said, "Look at this kid, just like his dad, a failure." I gripped Logan's hand tightly, pulling him out of that house, my heart aching. I vowed never to let Logan feel as inferior as they had made me feel. And then, a true miracle happened. After so many failures, my EdTech platform, designed to provide free education to children in remote areas, finally gained traction. A major investor from Silicon Valley saw its potential and poured in millions of dollars. My company took off. From a small office with 3 employees, we grew into a business with hundreds of staff, valued at hundreds of millions. I became a self-made millionaire, something I never dared to dream of back when I was sleeping on a sofa and eating instant noodles. Life for me and Logan changed completely. I bought a townhouse in Back Bay with large windows overlooking the cobblestone streets and walls adorned with Logan's artwork. I enrolled Logan in a prestigious private school where he could nurture his talent for painting and his exceptional intelligence. Every evening I sat with Logan, helping with his homework, telling him stories, trying to make up for the tough years he had endured. But despite the wealth and success, there was still an emptiness in my heart. I longed for a true home, one where Logan had a mother who loved him, and I had a woman by my side. Not for fame or money, but for who I am. I tried to repay my adoptive mother. I offered to buy her a new house or at least take her on a trip, but she always refused. "I don't need anything, Stephen," she said, smiling gently. "Seeing you and Logan happy is enough for me." Once I secretly deposited money into her account, but she found out and returned it along with a handwritten letter. "Save it for Logan's future. I just want you to know I'm proud of you." Reading those words, I broke down in tears. She was the only one in my adoptive family who loved me unconditionally, and I swore I'd never let her feel alone. But my adoptive father and Ryan, they changed their tune when they learned of my success. Peter, who once called me useless, started calling, his tone falsely sweet, asking about the company and suggesting I invest in his projects. Ryan showed up with a fake smile, clapping me on the shoulder as if we'd never had any bad blood. "You've done well, Stephen," he said, but his eyes betrayed his jealousy and scheming. I wasn't surprised. I knew they weren't sincere, but I remained polite for my mother's sake. Still in my heart, the wounds they left never healed. I promised myself I'd never let them hurt Logan or drag me back to those painful days. My life and Logan's was gradually stabilizing, like a boat finally finding harbor after countless storms. I spent most of my time on work, building the company stronger day by day, and evenings with my son, reading books to him, playing basketball in the townhouse backyard, or simply sitting together watching movies. Logan had grown up, now 10 years old, with bright eyes and a smile identical to mine as a child. He was my source of life, but I knew he needed more than that. He needed a complete family, and so did I. I longed for a woman who could fill the void left by Monica, someone who could love Logan as her own and love me for who I am, not for the numbers in my bank account. Then I met Alexis Monroe. It was a fall evening in Boston at a charity event sponsored by my company. The event took place at a luxurious hotel by the Charles River, with twinkling lights reflecting on the water and soft jazz music echoing in the air. I arrived alone, as usual, just to network with investors and partners. I didn't expect much, only hoping to make a few more connections for the company. But then, amidst the crowd, I saw her. Alexis stood out like a flower in a garden. She was 25, with shimmering golden hair cascading over her shoulders, sparkling blue eyes like the ocean, and a warm smile that could melt anyone. She wore a simple yet elegant black dress that hugged her slender figure, and she moved with a natural grace that drew all eyes to her. I happened to stand next to her at the bar as we both ordered a glass of red wine. "Excuse me, are you Stephen Collins?" she asked, her voice gentle and sweet like honey. I nodded, a bit surprised, not thinking I was that well known. "I've read about your EdTech platform. It's amazing the way you help children access free education. I work for a non-governmental organization focused on children's education, so I really admire people like you." We started talking and time seemed to stand still. Alexis shared about her work, her trips to rural areas to teach poor children, her passion for helping others. She listened intently as I recounted my entrepreneurial journey, her eyes shining with genuine empathy when I mentioned the failures. "You must be so strong to have overcome that," she said, lightly placing her hand on my arm. In that moment, I felt an electric current run through me. It had been a long time since I felt such a connection, not superficial admiration, but real care. We exchanged phone numbers, and before leaving, she smiled. "I hope we'll meet again, Stephen." From there, things moved quickly. Our first date was at a small cafe in Back Bay, where we sat for hours talking about everything from books to future dreams. Alexis was sophisticated in a way that surprised me. She remembered every little detail I shared, like how Logan loved drawing, and on our second date, she brought a set of watercolors as a gift for him. "I thought Logan would like it," she said, her smile radiant. I introduced her to Logan earlier than planned because I wanted to see his reaction. Logan was polite at first, but I noticed he was a bit wary. "She's so pretty, Dad," Logan said after the first meeting, but his voice had a hint of discomfort. Alexis ignited in me hope for a new family. She showed interest in Logan subtly, asking about his school, even offering to help with his homework. To me, she was the perfect woman, gentle, intelligent, and always there when I needed her. We spent weekends strolling around Boston Common hand in hand, laughing like young lovers. I told her about my painful past, about my adoptive family, about Monica, and she listened, holding me tighter. "You deserve happiness, Stephen," she whispered. "I'll be by your side, making up for those hurts." For the first time in years, I felt truly loved. I believed I had found the woman who could heal my heart's wounds, the one who would build a home with me for Logan. My adoptive family quickly learned about Alexis. I brought her home for a visit once, and their reactions surprised me. My adoptive father, Peter, who had always been cold to me, suddenly became enthusiastic. "She's wonderful, Stephen," he said, patting my shoulder with a rare smile. "She seems smart and beautiful. Don't let her slip away." Ryan, my adoptive brother, praised her even more. "You're lucky, bro. She's the perfect woman, young, alluring, and sure to bring you happiness." I found it strange, as they had never supported me like that before, but I thought perhaps my success had changed them. My adoptive mother, Deborah, was supportive as always. "As long as you're happy, Stephen," she said, hugging me tightly. "I see your eyes light up when you talk about her. That's what matters most." But not everyone was pleased. Logan, my son, began to show suspicion. He sensed something artificial about Alexis. "She smiles too much, Dad," Logan said one evening as we sat at dinner. "She's trying too hard to make me like her." I laughed it off, thinking he was just jealous of sharing his dad. "Son, Alexis just wants to get close to you. She's good." But Logan didn't stop. He warned me multiple times, like when Alexis gave him an expensive toy and he said, "She's trying to buy me, Dad." I brushed it off because Logan was still young, only 10, and I thought he didn't fully understand love. I was too desperate for a home, too blinded by love, so I ignored the unusual signs, like how Alexis sometimes dodged questions about her past, or the secretive phone calls she took when we were together. Alexis skillfully built a bond with me. She cooked romantic dinners at home, massaged me after tiring workdays, and always knew how to make me laugh. With Logan, she tried to win him over by taking him to the park, buying ice cream, or telling jokes. But Logan kept his distance. Once he accidentally spilled water on Alexis's dress, and though she laughed it off, Logan whispered to me afterward, "She's pretending, Dad." I saw her get angry. I started getting irritated with my son. "Logan, you have to be polite to Alexis. She's going to be your stepmom." For the first time in my life, I scolded Logan, and the reason was for being rude to his future stepmom. Logan looked at me with eyes full of hurt. "You love her more than me now," he said, his voice trembling. I hugged Logan, apologizing, but in my heart, I knew a gap was forming between us. In the days that followed, I tried to make it up to Logan by spending more time with him. We went to the park, played ball, and I told him stories from my childhood, stories I hoped would help him understand that I loved him more than anything in the world. But the crack had already appeared, and every time Alexis came over, Logan would fall silent, retreating into his shell. I convinced myself that time would heal everything, that once we officially became a family, Logan would accept Alexis. I was too blind, too desperate for happiness to realize that the warning signs from my son were becoming increasingly clear. After a few months of dating, everything happened so quickly that I could barely catch my breath. I proposed to Alexis on a romantic evening at a restaurant by the Charles River. I knelt down, holding a diamond ring sparkling under the candlelight, and said, "Alexis, you're the missing piece in my life. Will you marry me?" She cried, hugged me tightly, and whispered yes, with a radiant smile. My heart pounded with joy, as if all the pain from my past had finally dissolved. I envisioned a perfect future, a happy family, Logan with a loving stepmother, and me with a woman to share every joy and sorrow. But when I told Logan, his reaction was like a bucket of cold water splashed in my face. "Dad, don't marry her," Logan shouted, his face flushed red, tears streaming down his cheeks. "She's no good, Dad. She's fake. I know it." He hugged me tightly, trembling, begging me to reconsider. I tried to explain, stroking his back. "Logan, son, Alexis loves me and loves you. She'll bring happiness to us." But Logan shook his head furiously, ran to his room, and slammed the door. His cries echoed out, making my heart tighten. I stood outside the door, knocking gently, but he wouldn't open it. For the first time, I felt like I was losing the trust of my son, the most important person in my life. But my blind love for Alexis made me ignore it, thinking he was just jealous and that everything would be fine. We began planning the wedding. a luxurious affair that I thought would be the pinnacle of happiness. Alexis wanted everything to be perfect, and I agreed. We chose a 5-star resort in the Maldives with pristine white sandy beaches, turquoise waters, and luxurious overwater bungalows. The wedding spanned 5 days, not a simple ceremony but a grand event, with hundreds of important guests, business partners, investors, friends from the tech world, and even the media. I wanted this wedding to be a statement of my journey, from an orphaned boy who was looked down upon to a successful millionaire, now with a wonderful woman by my side. During the preparations, Logan seemed to be pushed to the sidelines. I was busy with work, meetings with event planners, selecting menus, and discussing guest lists. Alexis spent time trying on wedding dresses and choosing flowers, but she showed less interest in Logan than before. Once I asked her, "What do you think Logan should do in the wedding? Maybe carry the rings?" Alexis smiled. "Yeah, that's a good idea, honey, but the kid's still young. Don't force him." I noticed that Logan was mentioned less and less in our conversations. He sat alone in his room drawing dark pictures, images of broken families that I only glimpsed and dismissed as childish imagination. "I don't want to go to the wedding," Logan said once, his voice sad. I snapped, "Logan, this is an important day for Dad. You have to cheer up." He lowered his head and I felt guilty, but then I got swept back into the whirlwind of preparations. Finally, the wedding day arrived. We flew to the Maldives on a private jet, with my adoptive family and Logan in tow. The resort was paradise, high-end wooden villas with private pools, relaxing spas, and private beaches. The 5-day event was tightly scheduled. Day 1 was a welcome party with cocktails and dinner under the stars. Day 2 was beach games and group activities. Day 3 was the official ceremony on the beach at sunset. Day 4 was a barbecue and dancing, and the final day was a farewell brunch before everyone departed. Guests arrived from all over. The media snapped photos and conducted interviews praising the wedding as a modern fairy tale. I felt like I was at the peak, hand in hand with Alexis, a smile never leaving my lips. But behind the glamorous facade, suspicious signs began to emerge, though I didn't notice them. Alexis would disappear strangely often. On the first day during the welcome party, she said, "I'm going for a little walk, okay, honey?" and vanished for hours. I thought she just needed some space, but Logan, with the keen eyes of a 10-year-old boy, had noticed. He had been suspicious for a long time, and now at the resort he decided to follow her. "Dad, where is she going?" Logan asked me, but I waved him off. "Don't worry about it, Alexis is just enjoying herself." Logan said nothing, but he sneaked after her, hiding behind tropical bushes, phone in hand. The birthday gift I'd given him now turned into a secret investigation tool. My adoptive father, Peter, and brother Ryan arrived early too, and they seemed to be around Alexis in a strangely close way, as if they were old friends. I caught glimpses of them talking privately by the water's edge, exchanging meaningful glances with gestures that were oddly intimate, which surprised me a bit, but I quickly brushed aside. Ryan patted Alexis on the shoulder, laughing naturally, and Dad whispered something in her ear, making her nod and smile. I thought they were just fitting in, since before the wedding they had praised Alexis so much, constantly saying she was the perfect piece for the family. "Your family is amazing," Alexis said when she returned to me, kissing my cheek lightly. And that moment made me float with happiness, as if everything in the world was smiling at me. I held her tighter, feeling love overflow, erasing any vague worries. But Logan saw it differently. The boy, with the sensitivity of a 10-year-old who had witnessed a family break apart, had been suspicious for a while. While I was busy with guests, Logan hid behind a rock near the beach, phone in hand, quickly snapping shady moments. Alexis secretly texting with a tense expression, then sneaking off to meet Dad and Ryan in a hidden corner of the resort, where tropical bushes obscured the view. They whispered something, their gestures more intimate than normal. A lingering touch, a conspiratorial smile. Logan's heart pounded with fear, but he still tried to record everything, thinking it was the only way to protect his dad. Just minutes later, Logan ran up to me, face flushed, tugging at my sleeve while I was laughing and chatting with a group of business partners. "Dad, I have this. Look, Alexis is meeting Grandpa and Uncle Ryan secretly. They're discussing something weird," he whispered, holding up his phone with blurry but clear photos of the meeting. I glanced quickly, my heart tightening for a second, but then Alexis's smile from afar made me shake my head. I was living in the euphoric haze of love, happiness overflowing, and I didn't want anything to ruin the moment. "Son, you must be imagining things. They're just chatting casually. We're busy. Go play with your friends," I said, ruffling his hair absent-mindedly. Then turning back to the guests, my laughter echoing and drowning out my son's disappointed sigh. Undeterred, Logan persisted. That evening at the welcome party, as everyone raised glasses under the twinkling lights, the boy ran up again, this time with a short audio recording from his phone. "Dad, listen. I heard them talking about some plan and money." "Alexis isn't sincere," Logan whispered urgently, his eyes glistening with tears, his hand trembling as he held the phone. The sound was fuzzy, but you could faintly hear Alexis giggling with Ryan. I paused for a moment, a sense of unease flashing through me, but then Alexis approached, wrapping her arm around my waist, whispering, "Honey, everything is wonderful." Happiness surged, and I forgot it all, ignoring the evidence right in front of me. "Logan, stop thinking nonsense. This is our wedding. Everyone's happy. Go to bed early. Tomorrow there are beach games," I said, my voice slightly irritated from being busy, then gently pushing my son aside, turning back to toast with Dad and Ryan, who were laughing as if nothing had happened. The next morning, during the beach games day, Logan tried once more. He ran up to me while I was in the middle of a group activity, face covered in sand, holding up new photos. Alexis sneaking to meet my adoptive father in a private bungalow, their eyes furtive, and a fragmented audio. "After the wedding, we'll..." "Dad, look." I followed them. "They're plotting something. Don't marry her." Logan sobbed, his voice trembling with fear and despair. I was laughing loudly from just winning a game, the euphoric feeling of happiness making everything else blurry. I glanced at the evidence, my heart stinging a bit, but then thought my son was just jealous or imagining things. "Son, I'm really busy. Don't bother me anymore. This is just a misunderstanding. Go play. I love you," I said quickly, patting his shoulder before turning back to the fun. Logan didn't give up, but every time he ran to me with photos, with recordings, with urgent whispers, I ignored him. I was living in a bubble of love, overflowing with happiness, and the busyness of the wedding made me unwilling to face it. "You're just imagining it," I repeated each time, then turned away, leaving my son with growing pain. Deep down, a vague unease began to form in me, but my blind love covered it all, leading me deeper into the nightmare that was about to unfold. That night, after the beach games day filled with laughter and golden sunshine, the resort sank into peaceful darkness, with only the rhythmic crashing of waves from the ocean like secret whispers. I lay in bed in the luxurious bungalow. Alexis curled up beside me, her steady breathing making me smile in my fitful sleep. I dreamed of tomorrow's wedding ceremony, the day I believed would be the start of a new life, where all the wounds from my past would finally heal. I had no idea what was happening out there under the silver moonlight shining on the sparkling pool water. I slept soundly, overflowing with happiness, while my world was preparing to collapse. The next morning, as the sun rose over the Maldives Sea, casting warm rays through the window, I woke up with a smile on my lips. Alexis was still asleep, looking like an angel, and I gently kissed her forehead before stepping out onto the balcony for coffee. The resort air was serene, with birdsong mingling with the sea breeze, and I thought about the final day of the wedding, the farewell brunch after which we would officially be husband and wife. But then the bungalow door burst open and Logan rushed in, his face pale, eyes red and swollen as if he'd been crying all night. "Dad, I need to talk to you urgently," he said, his voice trembling, clutching his phone as if it were the most precious thing in the world. I frowned, a bit irritated at being disturbed in this peaceful moment. "Later, son. Dad's relaxing." "Today is a happy day," I said, trying to smile to soothe him. Alexis woke up, sitting up in bed with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Logan. What's wrong, sweetie?" But Logan didn't look at her. He rushed to my side, holding up his phone. "You have to see this, Dad." I followed Alexis last night. She went into Grandpa's room and they're tricking you." His voice broke, tears streaming down his cheeks. I paused, my heart tightening slightly, but then thought he was imagining things again. "Logan, I've told you, stop thinking nonsense. This is Dad's wedding. Don't ruin the atmosphere." But Logan didn't stop. He burst into sobs, pressing play on his phone, and the sounds rang out. Familiar voices, clear as day, making my blood run cold. It was my adoptive father, Peter's voice, low and full of greed. "Everything's going smoothly. That idiot Steven suspects nothing. After the wedding, we'll start the plan. Seize the company, the assets, and remove him from control." Then Alexis's voice, sweet but venomous. "I've done my part well, pretending to love that fool, winning over his son, and now the wedding. But you guys better pay me fairly. I'm not some cheap escort." Ryan chimed in, his voice sneering. "Don't worry. Dad and I hired you because you're a pro. Steven's assets are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll get your share for sure." I slumped into the chair, my ears ringing, the world around me blurring. Logan continued, his voice choked. "I caught her going into Grandpa's room last night, Dad. I hid outside the door and recorded everything. They're plotting to take your assets, to get rid of you. And Alexis, she's an escort hired by Grandpa and Uncle Ryan to approach you." He held up photos, blurry but clear. Alexis sitting close to Ryan, her hand on his thigh, Peter holding a glass of wine with a conspiratorial smile, and that intimate scene made me nauseous. The horrifying truth unfolded before my eyes. Alexis wasn't the sophisticated, loving woman I met at the charity event. She was a high-end escort, hired by my adoptive father and brother to seduce me, marry me, and then steal everything. My company, my assets, and perhaps even my life. I listened to the rest of the recording, each word like a knife to my heart. They detailed the plan. After the wedding, Alexis would convince me to sign papers for the family's future. Then they'd use lawyers to transfer shares, frame me, or manipulate the board to oust me. "Steven will crumble just like when his wife left him," Peter said, his voice full of glee. "He's not my real son, so I don't care." Ryan laughed loudly. "And his kid? We'll get rid of the brat so no one gets in the way." Logan cried harder, hugging me tightly. "Dad, I've tried to warn you so many times. I followed them, took pictures, recorded everything. Don't marry her anymore, Dad." At first, I couldn't believe it. I looked at Alexis, the woman I loved passionately, now sitting there with a pale face, trying to force a smile. "Steven, don't listen to the kid. He's imagining things." But the evidence was too clear. The voices, the images, everything connected. My heart shattered, pain crashing over me like waves. I realized that my adoptive father and brother had orchestrated it all to ruin me. The people I once called family, though they never saw me as their real kin. They were jealous of my success, wanting to seize everything I'd built from nothing. And Alexis, whom I thought would make up for my old hurts, was just a tool in their filthy scheme. I was in deep shock, sitting motionless, tears streaming down without me noticing. I blamed myself for ignoring Logan's warnings, letting love cloud my judgment. "Son, I'm sorry," I whispered, hugging Logan tightly, feeling his pain. The 10-year-old boy who had to witness and gather evidence alone while I dismissed him time and again. The agony surged, but with it came awakening. I couldn't let them win. I decided to expose them all on the final day of the wedding ceremony, instead of canceling quietly. This would be my revenge, public, painful, and unforgiving. Alexis tried to explain, but I pushed her away. "Get out of here." She left with a panicked expression, and I sat there holding Logan, planning in my head. The storm had arrived, but I wouldn't fall. I would stand up, stronger than ever, for my son, for my adoptive mother, and for myself. I sat motionless in the bungalow, holding Logan tightly in my arms, feeling as if my heart was being torn to shreds. His tears soaked my shirt, and I stroked his back, whispering words of comfort that I myself desperately needed to hear. "I'm sorry, son. Dad was wrong. You were right all along." Logan looked up at me, his eyes red and swollen but shining with relief. "You believe me now, Dad? What are we going to do?" I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the rage boiling in my chest. The wedding was still going on out there, with hundreds of guests, the media, and those traitors laughing as if nothing had happened. I couldn't let them win. I couldn't cancel quietly and let them continue living in their facade. No, I would expose them right here in front of everyone, letting the truth shine under the brilliant Maldives sun. I wiped away Logan's tears, my voice firm. "We're ending this today, son. Dad will show everyone their true faces." He nodded, and we sprang into action. I immediately called my lawyer in Boston. "Prepare the legal documents and fly here right away," I said over the phone, my voice icy. Then I contacted the resort's technical team, requesting a large screen at the main stage where the wedding ceremony was set for the afternoon. I copied all the evidence from Logan's phone, the intimate photos, the full audio recordings, messages, and even the contract hiring Alexis that Logan had captured through the door crack. I edited them into a concise but sharp video clip, complete with a QR code so guests could view it on their own phones if they wanted. Everything had to be public, undeniable. In the meantime, I maintained my composure in front of everyone. I went outside, smiling and chatting with guests as if nothing was wrong, but inside a storm was raging. My adoptive father, Peter, and Ryan approached me with fake smiles. "Ready for the big day, son?" Peter patted my shoulder, his eyes flashing with greed that I now recognized. Ryan smirked. "Your future sister-in-law is really nervous." I nodded, holding back my anger. "Yeah, everything will be full of surprises." Alexis avoided me, but I saw her glancing from afar, her face pale. My adoptive mother, Deborah, the only one who knew nothing, pulled me aside. "Son, are you okay? You look off." I hugged her, whispering, "Stay by my side, Mom. Something's going to happen today." She nodded, her eyes worried but full of trust. Time passed agonizingly slowly. Then, as afternoon arrived, the resort was lavishly decorated. Vibrant fresh flowers, pristine white chairs in rows, a stage with an arch of blooms and a large LED screen. Guests gathered, the media snapped photos, and soft music echoed. I wore a sleek black suit, standing by the stage, my heart pounding. Logan was beside me, gripping my hand tightly, and my adoptive mother sat in the front row, her face full of anxiety. Alexis emerged in a pristine white wedding dress, her smile forced, trying to maintain perfection. My adoptive father and Ryan sat nearby, laughing with guests as if they were the closest family. The crucial moment arrived. The MC, a professional host we had hired, stepped onto the stage with a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, today is the joyous day for Stephen Collins and Alexis Monroe. Let us witness their vows under this stunning sunset." The officiant, a local priest, prepared to pronounce the marriage, holding the Bible, his voice solemn. "Stephen and Alexis, do you agree?" But before he could finish, I stepped onto the stage, raising my hand to stop him. The music cut off abruptly, and all eyes turned to me. "I'm sorry, everyone," I said, my voice echoing through the microphone. "But today is not a wedding day. Today is the day the truth is revealed." The atmosphere fell silent instantly, with only the sound of waves crashing and murmurs from the guests. Alexis froze, her face ashen. My adoptive father, Peter, and Ryan exchanged glances, their eyes panicked. I took a deep breath, my voice steady. I believed I had found true love, a home for my son and myself, but it was all a deception. And today, in front of you all, friends, partners, and the media, I will show you the true faces of these betrayers. I signaled the technician, and the large LED screen lit up. The clip began playing. The intimate photos of Alexis with Ryan, the audio resounding clearly. Peter's voice. Seize the company, remove him. Alexis's voice. I'm not some cheap escort, remember to share the cut. Ryan's voice. We'll take all the assets. Chaos erupted immediately. Guests gasped, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Some stood up, snapping photos of the screen with their phones. The media rushed forward, flashes blazing. Alexis was stunned. Stephen, stop! This is a misunderstanding. She ran onto the stage, trying to grab the microphone from my hand, but I pushed her away hard enough that she sprawled onto the stage floor. I continued, my voice cold. Misunderstanding? This is evidence from your own mouths. My adoptive father, Peter, jumped up, face flushed. You bastard! How dare you slander me? He charged toward the stage, but my lawyer, who had flown in just in time, stepped forward, holding legal documents. Mr. Collins, this is a restraining order from the Boston court. Any action will be evidence against you. Ryan was more panicked, trying to deny. This is fabricated. Stephen's jealous of us. But his voice trembled, and those around them looked at them with contempt. I continued, my voice sharp and resounding across the beach. I cancel this marriage immediately. Alexis Monroe, or whatever your real name is, will not be my wife. And Peter Collins, Ryan Collins, you are no longer my family. I sever all ties, and my lawyers will sue you for conspiracy to seize assets, fraud, and betrayal. Applause began from one corner. From my close friends, partners who knew my arduous entrepreneurial journey. The media filmed frantically, and I saw some guests scanning the QR code on the screen, viewing the full evidence, their faces shifting from shock to outrage. Alexis sobbed, kneeling on the stage. Stephen, I really love you. This is their plot, not mine. But her voice was weak, and no one believed her. My adoptive father, Peter, tried to charge again. You're just an adopted brat. You don't deserve anything. Those words poured fuel on the fire. Guests booed, some standing to criticize him. Ryan tried to flee, but the resort security I had arranged blocked him. The chaos peaked. Shouts, cries, whispers, and nonstop flashes. I stood there watching them struggle in despair, feeling like a burden had been lifted. I had awakened, and now it was time for them to pay. My adoptive mother, Deborah, rose from the front row, tears streaming down, but she walked onto the stage, hugging me and Logan. I'm with you, Stephen. I had no idea. I'm sorry. She turned to Peter, her voice trembling but resolute. Peter, you've betrayed everything. I'm divorcing you. Applause rang out again, louder this time from most of the guests. My friends rushed up, patting my shoulder. Stephen, you're so strong. The media interviewed on the spot. Mr. Collins, can you tell us the details? I politely declined, leading Logan and my mother away from the stage amid the crowd's support. We walked along the beach, leaving behind the chaos, Alexis sobbing, Peter and Ryan detained by security, and the wedding turned into a massive scandal. As we left the resort, I felt like an enormous burden had been lifted from my shoulders. The Maldives beach was still beautiful with its white sand and turquoise waters, but now it was no longer a place witnessing fabricated happiness. Logan gripped my hand tightly, the boy smiling for the first time in many days. Dad, let's just go home. My adoptive mother walked beside us, wiping away her tears, but her eyes were more resolute than ever. Son, I'll be by your side, and Logan's. We'll be a real family, she said, her warm voice stirring my heart. We boarded the private jet back to Boston, leaving behind the traitors struggling with the consequences of their own actions. The days that followed were a media storm. News of the wedding scandal spread everywhere, from major newspapers to social media. EdTech millionaire Stephen Collins exposes fraud conspiracy at lavish wedding, the headlines screamed. I received hundreds of supportive messages from friends, business partners, and even strangers. My company wasn't affected at all. In fact, the stock soared because people admired my courage. I fully preserved my assets, thanks to transferring them into a trust fund in time, and my social standing became even stronger. Public opinion was on my side, calling me a hero who overcame betrayal, and I was grateful for that. But deep down, I knew this victory wasn't the end, but the beginning of painful consequences for those who had harmed me. First was my adoptive mother, Deborah. She couldn't bear her husband's betrayal, the man she had lived with for so many years, only to discover he was greedy, willing to sell out the family for money. Right after returning to Boston, she filed for divorce. "I can't live with a man like that anymore, Stephen," she told me during our first dinner at the townhouse in Back Bay. She sat there, her hands trembling as she held her teacup, but her voice was firm. Peter tried to beg, calling nonstop, sending flowers and apology letters, but she didn't waver. The court ruled quickly because the evidence from the scandal was overwhelming. Peter had participated in the fraud conspiracy, which cost him all rights in the marriage. She got a fair share of the assets, but she didn't care about the money. "I just want to live peacefully with you and my grandson," she said. And so she moved in with me and Logan. The townhouse now felt warmer than ever. She cooked family meals, told stories to Logan, and became an emotional pillar for us father and son. Logan called her "Dear Grandma," and the boy finally laughed and played again, as if his emotional wounds were starting to heal. My adoptive brother Ryan suffered the heaviest consequences. He had once been arrogant, always mocking me, thinking he was the real son and thus more deserving. But after the scandal, everything collapsed. Ryan was working at a finance company in Boston where he bragged about his millionaire brother. But when the news broke, his boss, an old partner of mine, called him into the office and fired him on the spot. "We don't need betrayers on our team," they said. Ryan lost all credibility. Friends turned their backs. Business relationships crumbled. He tried to find new jobs, but everyone knew about the incident through the media. Ryan Collins? The one who plotted against his adoptive brother? No thanks. Recruiters rejected him. In the end, he had to leave Boston, moving to a small town in the Midwest, living in a cheap apartment, doing odd jobs to survive. I heard he tried to contact me once, sending an apology message. "Brother Stephen, I was wrong. Give me a chance." But I deleted the message without replying. Ryan was now alone, impoverished and regretful, a fitting consequence for the years he had caused me pain. My adoptive father, Peter, endured even greater suffering. He lost everything: his wife after the swift divorce, the adoptive son he had always despised, and his grandson Logan, the child he had never cared about. His relatives scorned him, his own siblings turned away. "Peter, you've brought shame to the family." He lived alone in the old house in the Boston suburbs with no one visiting. The media hounded him, calling him the betraying adoptive father. And he had to hide, keeping the doors locked tight. I heard he tried to sell the house to pay off debts, because the lawsuit from my lawyers stripped him of all personal assets. Peter aged visibly, his hair turning completely white, and once Deborah told me he called her crying, "Deborah, I was wrong. Please forgive me." But she shook her head. "It's too late, Peter." He was now lonely, abandoned by society, and had to live with the torment that his own greed had destroyed everything he once had. As for Alexis Monroe, my fake bride, she returned to her old life in a pitiful way. She had once dreamed of turning her life around, thinking a marriage to a millionaire would bring luxury. But after the scandal, everything shattered. The media dubbed her the high-end escort in a fraud conspiracy, and her images spread everywhere. She lost all her clients, wealthy men who didn't want to be associated with the scandal. Alexis tried moving to New York, changing her name, but her past caught up. She went back to being an escort, but now at a lower level, living in a cramped apartment, facing contempt every day. I didn't hate her as much as Peter and Ryan, since she was just a tool, but I felt no pity. She had her illusions of a better life shattered, and now had to live with the consequences of her deceit. As for me, despite the pain, I had preserved everything. My assets were safe, my company grew stronger thanks to public support. I received a flood of interview requests, new contracts, and even offers for a book about my journey. But most importantly, Logan and my mother, we were now a real family, bonded and loving. I spent more time with my son, making up for the days I had ignored him. "Dad loves you more than anything in the world," I said every night, hugging Logan to sleep. And my mother became a source of strength, helping me heal my wounds. Those painful consequences weren't just for the betrayers. They also reminded me of a lesson. Family isn't about blood, but about those who truly love you. I moved forward stronger than ever, ready for the future, a future free from the shadow of deceit. In the months following the scandal, my life gradually returned to normal, but on a new path, one that was more solid and warmer than ever before. Logan, my adoptive mother Deborah, and I now lived together in the townhouse in Back Bay, turning it into a true home, where laughter echoed instead of whispered deceptions. Every morning, Mom would wake up early, brewing aromatic coffee and toasting bread for Logan before he headed to school. She would sit beside him, listening to him talk about his latest drawings or school stories, her eyes sparkling with love. "Grandma, today I drew a picture of our family," Logan once said, holding up a drawing of 3 figures holding hands under the sun. Mom smiled, stroking his hair. "It's beautiful, my dear. We're a real family now." I watched the scene from the kitchen doorway, my heart unusually warm. No more lonely evenings, no more sleepless nights dwelling on the past. We ate dinner together, watched movies, or simply sat by the fireplace sharing everyday stories. This new family wasn't bound by blood, but by genuine love, the kind of love that had helped us weather the storm. I devoted more time than ever to making up for what Logan, my beloved son, had endured. He had suffered so much, witnessing the betrayal, gathering evidence alone, and being ignored by me time and again due to my blind love. I blamed myself every time I recalled those moments, and I was determined to restore his faith in family. Every weekend we explored Boston together, strolling around the Common, playing basketball in the backyard, or even taking short trips to Cape Cod, where we built sandcastles and laughed under the sun. "Dad, I trust you now," Logan said once as we sat by the shore watching the waves. "I know you love me the most." I hugged him tightly, tears streaming down. "I'll never let you hurt again, son. We're an unbeatable team." I helped him with homework, encouraged his artistic talent, and listened to all his thoughts, from minor worries to grand dreams. Logan gradually opened up again, his smile brighter, and his shaken faith in family now as solid as a rock. He no longer feared thoughts of a stepmother or a broken family. Instead, he was proud of us, Dad, Grandma, and him, an inseparable trio. Through it all, I gained profound awakening lessons, ones I would carry with me for life. I had loved blindly, letting my longing for a home cloud my judgment, ignoring every warning sign from Logan and my own intuition. That blindness nearly led to tragedy, losing all my assets, my son, and perhaps even my life if their plan had succeeded. I realized that not everyone is sincere. The world is full of opportunists, fake smiles hiding daggers. "Stephen, what have you learned from this?" Mom asked me one evening as we sat by the fireplace. I sighed. "Mom, I've learned that love must come with reason. You can't let emotions lead while ignoring the truth." I began living more cautiously, thoroughly vetting new relationships, listening to Logan more, and building walls around my heart. The wounds were still there, but they made me stronger, more alert, and no longer easily deceived. Even so, I still held on to hope for a brighter future. I hadn't closed my heart forever. I believed that one day a sincere woman would appear, not through glamorous events or schemes, but through simple, everyday moments. Perhaps a colleague at work or a stranger at a coffee shop, someone who would love me for who I am, love Logan as her own, and build a real home. But this time I would be more cautious, listening to my intuition, checking carefully, and never letting love obscure reason. "Dad, if you meet someone new, I'll support it if they're genuine," Logan once said, making me smile. I nodded. "I promise, son. We'll decide together." That hope was like a small light, illuminating the days ahead, reminding me that life still held many good things in store. And finally, the message I want to convey through this story. The message that changed my life forever. Family isn't about blood, but about those who truly love and protect you. Peter and Ryan, despite sharing family blood, were never real family. They were just greedy strangers. But Mom Deborah and Logan, one my adoptive mother, the other my son from a broken marriage, they were the pillars, the source of strength that helped me stand up. In a world full of deceit, cherish those who stand by you in tough times, those willing to sacrifice for you. I learned that through tears and pain, and now I live by it every day. My story ends here, but the journey continues, a journey of rebirth, hope, and genuine love. Thank you for listening.